eating heart, liver, lungs, eating intestines, the whole kind of shebang.
When you say eating intestines, you mean you're going to make sausage? Or?
No. You'll milk them of everything that's on the inside, scrape that inner lining, cut them up into little pieces, and then fry them in some form of fat, if you will. Okay. And then they're a little chewy. It's like bush calamari, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Bush calamari, I like that, yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Donny Dust. Oh, I like the alliteration. Big fan.
Right on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. You're so Marine Corps and how would you describe yourself? A master survivalist, maybe something like that.
I think survivalist, primitive skills, kind of educator, kind of a wilderness self-reliance kind of guide and outfitter.
That's we were talking about a little bit before we started recording. So you've got a thing coming up later this year where you're going to hunt an animal and then use what were the kind of tools you referred to?
Yeah, so pretty much it's a Stone Age bison butchering class. So we have megafauna. And a lot of like Paleo Indians, they would butcher out this game. And what I'll do is replicate with the students all the stone tools. We'll spend a good day making them, and then we'll get on a bison and then take it apart piece by piece, really eating and kind of discussing what things were used for. But eating heart, liver, lungs, eating intestines, the whole kind of shebang.
When you say eating intestines, you mean you're going to make sausage? Or?
No. You'll milk them of everything that's on the inside, scrape that inner lining, cut them up into little pieces, and then fry them in some form of fat, if you will. Okay. And then they're a little chewy. It's like bush calamari, I guess you could say. But.
Bush calamari, I like that. Yeah. Well, there were some people got about 10 years ago. There was some not conspiracy, but there was some kind of. The FDA got involved because people were selling pig assholes as calamari, which, that part. So what's the point of eating intestines aside from not wasting part of the animal? I mean, it seems like it'd probably be pretty nutrient dense considering what they are, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of presenting those options. A lot of people, when they gut an animal, they discard everything on that inside. So it's just presenting other options. If you're not going to consume it, what else can you do with it? And like most intestines, typically from elk or mule deer or even something like a bison, you can open them up, milk them out, scrape the lining, and twist them into like a bowstring or really high density cordage.
I've seen that before to make, you twist and dry the individual ones, and then you can braid those together as well to make pretty strong rope out of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got it on some bows that are 65 plus pounds.
Holy shit.
So
like a recurve style bow?
Just stick bows, old primitive hackberry, Osage, white ash.
That's crazy.
They'll last.
So Stone Age tools, what kind of rock are you looking for? What kind of stone?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the stuff around the hill country of Texas, like Pedernales Chert, Georgetown Chert.
If you go up there, there's all kinds of you know Baker Levitt, right?
Yeah.
So he and his girl love to go arrow hunting.
Right on.
There's some good arrow hunting. Out there, and it's pretty crazy. And then they have those, I guess some of the, let's call it primitive tools and techniques. They would kind of grind wheat into the stone until there was a hole there. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is.
It's a mano metate and a mortar and pestle.
So, I know mortar and pestle, but if you go out to I'm sure you've seen this many times in West Texas, you'll just see random, like it's a perfectly shaped cylindrical hole in the rock. The first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck is that? For a minute I thought it was like a snake was going to pop out of there or something. The first time I saw one, but then I see it shallow. It's maybe like 6 or 8 inches deep or something like that. It's like, they just turn that into a mortar and pestle. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, this entire area is littered with ancient cultures, late archaic, early archaic to Paleo Indian. This is probably one of the best spots to hunt for, artifacts, raw stone to nap. It's kind of one of the reasons why I frequent, kind of the hill country of Texas, Dripping Springs, north of San Antonio, just because the stone quality it's ideal. So.
And what kind of what kind of tools are you going to make, right?
Yeah, so I make some hafted blades, so long elongated blades, hafted in some sort of wood, a variety of crescent knives, raw flakes. I mean, a raw stone flake, you can take apart, pretty much anything. It's sharper than a razor blade. We'll do some hand axes when you're getting into some of those joints. You can really just kind of hoik down into them, but it's kind of a couple things. So I'll have some tools made, and then the students will actually make some of the tools that they want to experiment with. And then we'll get in cutting up in the bison. We'll smash some bones, eat the marrow, and just really, the tongue is the target, I always say, because tongue is probably the best meat next to some of those inside loins or back straps. But
when you say best, what do you mean?
it's just the tastiest. It's got the best kind of universal fat. Sometimes like you kill something, it's got like a mixture of fats. You get these lines that run. So
Like gristle fat versus
exactly like a lean. So yeah, cut that tongue out. Just kind of like flash boil it, roast it, pull that skin off of it, and then it's just pure meat. And some of the class is designed to kind of expose people to the unique components of an animal that you can eat. Not a lot of people like to eat liver, but a bison liver is, I mean, it's like the size of a trash can lid.
Yeah, it's big.
It's huge.
And it's also like that for what it is, it's probably one of the more macronutrient dense pieces of food you're ever going to get find, right?
Absolutely.
All right, well, we could talk about this shit forever. We're going to go down a rabbit hole here, but let's get back into your past a little bit. So where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and really grew up in Colorado, just as a young kid. And this is Colorado before it's been, invaded by so many people there.
When there were real hippies there and not this new version of hippie.
Exactly. Not the Instagram hippies. So, I mean, it was in a time and an era where, like, as an 8-year-old kid, you could walk out the house, walk to the creek, go fishing, steal some vegetables out of the neighbor's yard, and have a snack for the day.
Yeah.
And then, eventually I wound up in New Jersey, did 4 years of high school there, and then enlisted out of the Marine Corps out of there. Just because.
What made you decide to join the Marine Corps? And what year was it?
This was in 1999.
Okay.
And kind of my Marine Corps origin story was I was dating this girl. She lived next to a recruiting station. It was raining that day. I went to go visit her. She wasn't home. This is before cell phones and all that sort of jazz. And then as I walked past the recruiting station, there was one light on. It started raining. I went inside. Air Force, Navy, Army, nobody was there. And then there was this Marine Corps staff sergeant sitting in there. And I was 18 at the time, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I'll join." I had nothing really going on. I was butchering meat at a grocery store. And, you do drugs, ever been arrested? I'm like, "No, man, I'm clean." I played football, was in athletics, outdoors. He's like, "Well, what do you like to do?" I like camping, I like hunting, I like fishing. He goes, "What do you think about the infantry?" I said, "Sign me up."
Yeah.
Easiest sell, I think, for the Marine Corps. And then short time later, shipped out to Paris Island and got it started. Went in as a 0331 machine gunner. Yeah. And
you're a big dude, so
yeah,
they're going to give you that bitch.
Yeah, they will. 50 cals, marks, and I wound up in a CAT, which is Combined Anti-Armor Team with TOWs, Mark 19s and 50s. And as time kind of progressed, 9/11 kicked off, and then I wound up going into the counterintelligence, human intelligence field, and just started deploying out to Iraq, Southeast Asia, CONUS gigs, and eventually I came to a spot where I was non-deployable for about 9 months. I had 2 sons at the time. I was married at the time, and I was like, I kind of like this. I got to be a dad, so made the choice, got out, and then did a couple, government contracts, as most of us do when we get out, working for Uncle Sam. So in the counterintel field, I was, running source ops and then heavy into the interrogations. So essentially, I left and just worked interrogations and stuff, teaching interrogations to 35 Mikes, 35 Limas from the Army.
Yeah, they used to be, 97 something?
Yeah.
Now they're all 35. I can't keep up with that shit.
I don't know.
They keep reflagging people. So where were you in infantry? What unit?
3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines out in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii.
3-3. And then what made you decide to go into the intel side, or did somebody? Was it a MARSOC thing, or what happened there?
No, this is all kind of before. MARSOC was slowly coming around.
Yeah, it was like 2006. I think,
that's 2005 is when I started that process. I think it was just I wanted to make more like impact and ultimately deploy more. I think once you've seen it in different echelons. You kind of want to have that, it's that leadership sort of thing. It's how can I impart, knowledge, skills, and abilities and make a difference and really find a way to keep Marines, civilians, DOD personnel safe. And meeting with the scumbags and the shitheads that are, strapping bombs to their chest, laying down IEDs, if I could, have a chance to chat with them and talk with them and maybe prevent that. That's kind of how the CI Human sold it. Like you get that firsthand knowledge of these individuals, you can really make a huge impact. So it worked out.
And then how long did you do that, the human intelligence part?
I did that for just over 6.5 years. So 12 years total.
Then that's what you did as a contractor. That's primarily what you were doing.
Yeah, teaching the 35 series, the interrogations, and then doing some of the source operations. Different levels of it as far as Cat 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Yeah.
So,
and then what got you into? You were already into the outdoor survivalist hunting and all that stuff. But what made you decide to transition to that as more of a career, I guess?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty unique transition. Getting out, I found myself in DC, and I can't stand it. There's no mountains, fishing, hunting. It's kind of void of that. And I knew that if I could get back to Colorado, that's where I would want to raise my sons. More importantly, I could kind of explore the idea of guiding and teaching. And I was doing that while I was CONUS. And I wasn't deploying, so I was working with search and rescue teams, kind of teaching them how to land nav, good old map and compass in the event that GPS goes down. And so I found myself teaching various things, and I thought I could probably just transition that and turn it into a profession and just offer people an opportunity to really kind of practice their wilderness self-reliance and go to the next level.
And then how did it? How did it turn into stuff in TV and film? You just because usually that shit's kind of random. You just meet some people and they're like, hey, you should do this on camera sometime.
Yeah. So prior to 2017, I was never on social media. I kind of lived in the proverbial primitive closet. I didn't give, two cares to really interacting people in any way, shape, or form. But in February 2017, I had a massive heart attack. A widowmaker heart attack, which kills 99% of the people. And while I was in the hospital bed, I kind of went back to some of that Marine Corps sort of stuff, thinking about how you could adapt and overcome, and decided to kind of share more with people. If a heart attack had happened to me, I was training for a super jungle ultra marathon down in South America, 6 months into a training cycle, have a heart attack. And so if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody else. So I decided to kind of come out and start sharing. And as soon as I kind of started posting stone tools and hunting and all these various things, TV producers just came out of the woodworks and said, who are you? Where have you been? And let's get you on some television.
Well, what are some of the TV things you've done? Because I've seen some of them, but you've done there. When I was looking at the list, there's some stuff I've never heard of before, so it's quite rare.
There's all sorts. But yeah, it's so I was on Alone. I was on Alone the Beast, First Man Out.
Those are History Channel ones, right?
History Channel, correct. First Man Out is where I raced a man across the Amazon with just a machete, jumping off boats and swimming across the Amazon, shooting electric eels with bows, and just living like a pure savage. Land nav, terrain association, all that. I had my own show called Mud, Sweat, and Beards, where myself and another guy, we just went to all these different locations around the world and showed people kind of what you could do if you ever found yourself. So between Iceland and New Mexico and Louisiana. Cardi B, the famous rapper gal, I brought her out on a stick.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
how'd that go?
It was unique. It was
because she's from New York, right?
She's from New York,
so she's not been outside much.
No.
Not outside. I say that even though Ranella, when he told me a story when he lived in New York, he taught his kids how to trap squirrels and shit in Central Park. I'm I'm pretty sure that's illegal, bud.
It's free food, right?
Yeah.
No, she was. She was nice to me. She knew my kid's name, but it was just we were outside. We were on a film set in the middle where they do different TV shows and vehicle commercials. So, she shot a bow and she ate turtle jerky and rabbit jerky. She was all into it, trying to, learn some of these skills and whatnot. But, it was just a single day thing kind of for her show. And I've done like a lot of appearances on different documentaries and different magazines and stuff like that, and just stonework, napping, kind of living like the tag everyone likes to place, the professional caveman. And it's worked out. It's given me a sense of adventure, especially with my two teenage sons that are active in athletics and exploring and just kind of living their life. It's worked out. I have no complaints.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I think a lot of people probably look at it as a form of entertainment when they're watching your shit. It's like, well, I'm not going to ever do anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think you don't have to live in the woods or anything to understand that skills like this are not just important, I guess, but it's part of the culture, And then a lot of people think that they look at somebody who might be an outdoorsman or prepper or whatever phrase you want to use.
Yeah.
And like, well, that person's preparing for the worst. It's like, well, maybe, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be the worst scenario imaginable for these skills to be useful. For example, 80% of the chicken in the United States comes from fucking Brazil, right? Which is weird as hell.
Yeah, right.
And then, we all know about the hormones and heavy metals and antibiotics in food.
Yeah.
Like,
it's poison.
Don't buy meat from the grocery. Like in Texas, it's okay. HEB, all the meat comes from Texas.
Yeah.
So we're lucky to some degree here. Northern California is probably okay with Niman Ranch up there, providing a lot of the beef. Like you can find it pretty much everywhere. Idaho's okay. There's some places that are okay, but like the vast majority, like I would say at least 40 out of the 50 states, good luck finding quality protein, right?
Yeah.
So just understanding that and then knowing how to go out and get your own protein seems like a good fucking skill to have, frankly. And you don't have to like be a caveman or whatever fucking stereotype people think about this to know that's important and then learn how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a short distance from 40, 50 years ago where our parents and grandparents were preserving meats in root cellars, having that sort of kind of lifestyle. For me, I always stress to people, I'm like, you don't have to go out and hunt. You don't have to do any of these things. The one thing you should be focusing on is your own personal like healthcare, if you will. You should know how to do stitches, set a bone, fix yourself, and prevent kind of some of those diseases. Because as soon as you go into a hospital, you're going to get even more exposure. So kind of have that self-care, know how to clean, water, good proper hygiene. You can avoid a lot of issues. I mean, and that's on the extreme side. But just, my two boys don't eat factory meats.
Yeah.
It's all hunted. With some of it, it's even roadkill. It's even cleaner. Colorado, deer gets hit in the head, it freezes at night. It's meals, for the next couple months.
Yeah, I make to your point, there's plenty of places you can go to find non-factory meat now.
Sure.
We've talked, my buddy Jake has a company that literally travels across the country and takes beef and pork and lamb from farms in Missouri and just he'll deliver right to your door.
Nice.
Right? Sure, it's maybe a little bit more expensive, but these days with the grocery prices, maybe it's not, to be honest, right? But you know where it's coming from, and you know they don't have weird antibiotics injected into them and shit like that. And even if even if you aren't able to hunt, you can learn those skills. Like I make pemmican, and keep it in my shelves and shit like that. It's like I can, if everything goes sideways right now, I've got 3 months worth of food. Right on. Right, like high quality protein. Yeah. So I'm good. That's the way to do it. And it's not that difficult to do, frankly. Like these things are pretty easy to do, especially like now. I guess homesteading is taking off lately. Yeah. People are kind of getting pissed off about the way things have been going in American society lately, and I don't blame them. Right. Sure. I mean, it's fucking stupid. But I think it's like I think we should be less reactive about this stuff. People who are out there who aren't doing any of this stuff or don't think it's necessary or important, like you should. Well, here's a good example. When you go if you went to basic training today, you could get by in most combat theaters without a compass, right, or a physical map, like a piece of paper with shit on it. But you learn how to use it anyways, because what happens if there's something happens? You know what I mean? Solar flare or whatever, or you run out of batteries at some point, right? And you don't know how to get where you're going. these things are. I don't think it's just having the skill, though. I think it's the transference of the skill is part of what keeps culture alive,
Sure.
right? And the issue is that people, every new generation, typically benefits from a sacrifice that they've never made, right? Which is a problem because the linkage between effort and outcome is really important in establishing a set of values, right? Like our values aren't just pulled out of the sky, like, well, I think this is right and this is wrong because of this. No, it's like they're almost always very practical reasons for something to be a moral value. And typically it comes through some kind of suffering, struggle, or whatever, right?
Hardship.
Now we don't do that anymore, right? So I wonder, like, you're a dad now, and I ask people this shit all the time. It used to be, let's say, even maybe the boomer generation, but definitely before the boomer generation, the greatest generation, the goal in life was to go find a career, find a wife, have some kids, and give those kids a better life than you had, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm not sure how I can give my kids, when I have them, a better life than I've had. My life has been pretty dope. I mean, it started out pretty rough, right?
Sure.
And then war is not, I mean, it's actually pretty fun sometimes, but it's like I don't want that for them.
No, I got you.
But as far as like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like safety and security and shelter and shit like that, I can't do much better for them than I've done for myself, frankly.
For sure.
So maybe we're thinking about it the wrong way. Maybe it's not about the stuff or the comfort. Maybe it's about resilience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's like with my two sons and the things that we do, they get a whole different level of hardship, from the adventures we go on to saying, hey, let's go to Central America and let's go find some of the worst places and see how we can function. Let me educate you in certain ways. Let's understand where our food comes from. They're part of that process. So it's, in my mind, it's more about incorporating them into a certain lifestyle, still allowing them to have their own kind of needs, wants, and desires and interests, but making sure that those knowledge, skills, and abilities are passed and carried on. So, I mean, from a very young age, taking apart deer, understanding how this food impacts them, splitting wood, cutting grass, I'll never be able to give them the best life that they could possibly imagine. But they'll come to the actualization that their life was pretty damn good when they're 20, 23, 24 years old, and they start to endure some of the things that we would endure when we were 18, 19, and into our 20s, 30s, and 40s. So it takes a little time for young men to kind of see that impact and really kind of understand the importance of what those fathers and mothers actually did.
Yeah, and then I mean, you can tell the difference between a kid who's got his face buried in an iPad and one that has his hands buried in dirt. Frankly.
Absolutely.
Like I tell people this all the time, because some folks will tell me about their kid's therapist. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking
Jesus
about?
Christ.
Go tell that motherfucker, especially if it's a boy.
Yeah, deal with it.
If you got a boy that has some kind of behavioral issue, tell that bitch to go outside and dig a hole in the ground. Like, for real. Yeah. I don't mean to be reductive about it, but just go outside and dig a hole in the fucking ground, right?
It's energy output, man.
I mean, goddamn. It's like a puppy. What do you do when a puppy, you got a little, like I've got a puppy right now, actually, but you got like a little Australian Shepherd puppy, and they're freaking out, chewing on shit. What do? Give them a pill? No, you take them outside and let them fucking run, man.
Yeah, man.
It's like, we're not that much different than, we're animals, right? We like to think we're fucking clever and stuff like that, despite the stupid shit we do every day. But we're not any different than these animals, to be honest. And it's like, why can't we? Why is the hubris of human beings such that we can't look at that and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense?
Yeah.
The answer is almost always natural and simple, frankly, to every problem. But somehow we think we're going to outsmart nature after all this time.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of like kind of a primal lifestyle. And I'm not talking like,
Liver King.
Yeah, like nothing that sort
primal
of way.
lifestyle with $12,000 worth of steroids a month
Exactly,
will get you where you need to be, right?
You'll get where you need to be. But for like, myself, my boys, my girlfriend, it's about getting outside. It's understanding kind of how the world works and more importantly, with my two sons, like my oldest boy, he speaks French, he speaks Spanish. He's been busting his ass working for 2 years because he's like, I want to take a year off. I want to, travel around the world. I want to go to Southeast Asia. I want to go to Europe. And I'm like, well, good. That's a good thing. Dad isn't paying for it. Dad doesn't have the money to pay for that. So he gets that aspect of hard work and kind of knows that, you put the effort in, you can have the right kind of outcome. The outcome you determine, nothing that's given. And my youngest, he's a freshman playing, varsity lacrosse. He busts his ass routinely. Like they're on spring break right now, and he's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying home and work. They get it. And I think it's the right fathers. It's the right impact. Maybe it's a little bit of the military, a little bit of like, if your life was a little bit more difficult growing up, it's not saying that your kids' lives need to be difficult, but you see the importance of it. It builds hardship. Adversity is good. More importantly, it builds that resilience on really everything going forward.
Yeah. So, some research that I've read about the special operations community, the thing that sets them apart from, and this, to be fair, they compare them to just ordinary civilians and shit like that, not to other members of the military. So maybe it's a more pervasive than just the soft community. But one of the primary things that set them apart from ordinary people is their ability to burn cortisol rapidly and efficiently.
Right on.
Right. So you're talking about dealing with stress. And a lot of it is, there's the trope, but it's true a lot. Like a lot of special operators and infantry people grew up pretty rough lives, right? Abusive or something. Some kind of alcoholism was involved or absent dad, some shit like that, right? Yeah. Pretty common. But the key is that your body learns how to burn cortisol effectively at a very young age. Usually between 3 and 7 years old is where you really learn it, right? Yeah. And it's low-level conflict resolution, it's struggle, stress, stuff like that, and your body just gets used to burning and you can, because after that, it becomes increasingly more difficult as you get older to change those things, and you turn into one of two people. What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to jump, see what the fuck happens, right? Yeah. And then what's the worst that can happen? And you ruminate on what the possibilities are, right?
Yeah.
And you're not doing yourself any favors by... your brain is a very powerful tool that determines between threats and benefits. That's what it's made for. It's what all mammalian brains are made for. And it's also, however, garbage in, garbage out. So if you spend your time, this is why meditation works. No matter what you believe about anything, prayer, meditation, it doesn't matter what form it takes, it's always effective.
Yeah.
Right? If you do it the right way, because you're focusing on things that are beneficial to you and not bad, and then you're developing like a true sense of what hope is, instead of people hear the word hope and they think that it's like just wishing that something would be true.
It's actionable.
It's like hope to me is like dead reckoning, right?
Yeah, okay.
Like I'm putting my fucking needle on something, my compass needle on something, and look out in the distance. All right, that's where I want to be, and I'm going to walk in that direction, right? Yeah. It's nothing more than a azimuth, frankly. So I think that stuff. Finding ways to expose your kids to manageable struggle early on is, you just have to do it. Yeah. To be honest, you can't hand them a device and let them learn that everything is at the tip of their fingers, readily available all the time. That's fucked up. To me, that's like a very passive and sophisticated form of child abuse, frankly, because you're producing a child that has no life skills at that point.
Yeah. The technology has taken over parenting. That's pretty much the bottom line. I see so many parents when they go out to eat, they have a device in their child's hand. That kid just sits there. They don't interact. There's no engagement. Parents order for them. It's like, at what point do you kind of take all of potential responsibility and early kind of responsibility from a child and just never give him an option? I don't live by that. My kids have their exposure points to technology through school and just through, a timesheet, and your time card is now on your phone compared to the old clock on the wall where you used to punch in and punch out. But parents have the ability to manage that. I hear so many of parents saying, well, I can't keep my kids from doing this, or Sally's got this because Jody wants this, and it's like, you're still a parent. You're not a friend. You're a parent.
Yeah.
That's the key difference in what I see a lot of parents struggling with these days, because you chose to be a friend.
And then I think when that relationship breaks down and becomes friendly or transactional or whatever, you see it's culture is downstream of that shit, and then politics is downstream of that, right? So, for example, this week in Florida, they've banned social media for kids. Like, the state has no business telling me what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
Right? But if this is the problem with the way that we interact with our own governance these days. Plato said if you refuse to take part in your own governance, you're doomed to be ruled by fools, right?
Absolutely.
And that is exactly what's happening now. If you don't take the time to do the right thing, the government's going to come fucking do something about it, right? Like, a government will form somewhere, and they will start fucking handing out rules to you. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of life you want to live. Like, everybody talked a tough game the last couple of years about libertarianism or fuck this and fuck the government or whatever the fuck, but they haven't done much, to be honest, other than just bitch on the internet.
That's it. It's all talk.
What exactly have you done to secure, not just secure your rights, but to create a lifestyle for yourself that is sustainable without these people? You know what I mean? Like, can you get by? If the supply chain breaks down, what are you going to do? If the lights go out today, what are you going to do? Yeah, most people have no answer to that question.
Yeah, I can
They're
imagine.
like, oh fuck! I guess I'll just wait for them to come back on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've run that scenario and I've had that kind of thought many times, and it's kind of perfect, to be honest with you, because I would leave. And where I would leave is going to all the places that I've kind of prepared and I've been exposed to for quite some time. Up in the mountains, down to my place in New Mexico, my place down on the border. But it goes beyond, just leaving. I have a community around me, former veterans, police officers, and it's kind of like that collective would come together and be able to sustain. There's been those times when things shut down, power goes down, I would kind of be happy with it. I don't need a phone. I don't need to have, really anything. Less is more in my mind. It's easier to pack. It's easier to move. But I've heard the stories of snowstorms coming through Texas and everything's shutting down, and I'm just driving south. People don't know how to drive. I mean, there's countless scenarios, but if it does and when it does, it's kind of what is the root cause of said name issue? Is it some sort of solar flare? Is it chaos in the streets?
Right.
Respond and react. But I'm not going to be where there's any people. Because people cause chaos, and the people within my community, we can go together. Or my boys already have their E&E plan from everywhere we've lived. We link up, we execute, and that's pretty much it. Water, food, all sustainable, items that I need and that they kind of know. It's up in the mountains. My girlfriend is a medicinal plants master. She can make, like when the whole COVID thing was coming around and all that sort of BS, we're out in the woods collecting usnea, old man's beard, doing a tincture extract with 70% alcohol. It kills everything. It's better than ivermectin.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hands down. Yeah. I mean, I was in the Amazon, came back with a bug. She made a tea, and within 2 days, that parasite that was living inside me was gone. So medical, food, water. You can get to the basics, survive. Surviving is just getting by. But how do you start to thrive? And as we've been in a thrive zone for countless years, you start to get complacent. So we kind of like to hang in that survive and thrive kind of threshold, if you will.
Yeah, and it's, I think that nature provides, you know what I mean? And I don't just mean in the natural world, I mean sociologically as well. Like, I don't think it's any coincidence that that there's been 20 years of combat, and now we have all these people with a lot of skills in that regard that might be necessary to defend what's ours. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Like, I think these things happen, maybe not for a reason. I just think that's how nature works. It's yin yang. Like, we've tried to define it in every culture that's ever existed in humanity, right? Like the Asian folk might call it yin yang or whatever, push pull, whatever. But it always works that way. It's like you got to find that. You got to find that leverage. When I'm talking to people about their mental health and stuff like that, especially dudes who have been in the military, or even just guys who just don't have purpose these days. Yeah. Like, there are things that are I guess intrinsically positive and negative. So you're talking about hope and fear, right? Let's just call it that. And you can be overcome by those things. You can be in the clouds thinking about hope all the time and never actually take a fucking step in that direction, or you can be paralyzed by fear as well. Either one of those things are possible.
Yeah.
But, if you're able to put your fear behind you, like for folks like us, death doesn't scare me. Letting my family down, letting my men down, that scares me, right? Yeah. So I put that shit behind me and let it chase me, and then I'm hopeful to give a better life to people, to protect my country and shit like that, and I put that in front of me, and I chase that, right? That's push-pull. It's like every facet of your life, from diet to mental health to the actual plan, the daily shit that goes on in your life, is going to be informed by this. And the great gift is that you are in fucking control of it.
Sure.
It's not always true in life that you're in control of things, right? Usually you can only control your attitude and your effort.
Sure.
But in this regard, controlling your attitude and your effort will determine your outcome to a great degree, right?
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's force majeure. Sometimes shit just happens, but to a great degree, you are able to align yourself in a way that is in the right direction and is going to get positive results. But we ruminate. We think about the worst that can happen, or we let the fear of failure or being judged or something somehow stop us from doing shit. That's never occurred to me for whatever reason. Like, I had a pretty rough childhood, so I guess it never occurred to, like, nobody's going to stop me from doing what the fuck I want to do. You know what I mean?
Fear is a projection. It's a projection of unknowns and things that haven't happened. As soon as you acknowledge that, fear doesn't exist. Sure, you might have fears that something could happen to your wife, your kids, your girlfriend, your mom, your dad, but those things haven't happened. Like you said, when you ruminate and you dwell on it, then you start to focus on it, and that starts to rule you. So I live out of that fear box, that concept. So many people, you worry about bears, mountain lions, moose. I'm like, no one's got a gun. There's no bombs in these mountains. So this is a pretty good scenario for me, So and I think guys with, downrange experience, military experience, they have an easy way to kind of compartmentalize, like, what's something that's actionable and what's just kind of an idea floating around in the head. They kind of cut that idea out, go with the actionable.
It's good to be able to, I guess, compartmentalize is one way to say that, but also triage, right?
Triage.
So it's like, I know what the immediate threats are, and the risk of a bear mountain, like a kid just got dragged like 50 miles by a mountain lion this week, which is wild as hell, but mountain lions are fucking crazy, right?
Yeah, man.
But it's a real threat. But learn the behaviors, learn what to look for, and avoid that shit, right? Like, it's not like there's always risk. And this is something that I think should be required in high school, instead of like I think learning a foreign language in high school is stupid.
Yeah.
That should be in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, right? If we're
sense.
really going to commit to doing that, do it when it'll actually work, instead of wasting people's time when they're fucking teenagers.
Yeah.
But teach them as teenagers, when they have, a more sophisticated mind, what risk is, about risk management. You know what I mean? Because this is something that people like you that are out in the shit like that deal with, and we did in the military as well.
Sure.
But as a lifestyle, risk management, for once you're off the beaten path a little bit, risk management becomes a really important thing, and you get really good at it, right? Otherwise, you don't fucking survive typically, right? So you get really good at it. Yeah, I'm not fighting a fucking bear or a mountain lion. That ain't happening, right? So. But they present a very high risk, but risk can be mitigated. It can be smoothed. There's all kinds of, like, if you've never taken a risk management course, there's all kinds of ways to deal with that shit. So while it is an inherent risk, that doesn't mean it has to be an effective risk.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Those are two very different things. So
yeah, I mean, even with that bear, that moose, that mountain lion, simple risk factors that go into it. When are they calving? When are they eating? Is it the rut? It's simple kind of, knowledge and skills that come from the natural world that you could be exposed to. So the same thing if you travel overseas. If I go back down to like Zamboanga, Mindanao in southern Philippines, what is the current state? What is the pattern of life? What are the threats? You get accustomed to making those sort of assessments, and then you take the necessary actions. And some of the actions are as simple as, well, I don't go to that area.
Right,
I'm a 6'2" white guy.
If it's a not deniable area.
Exactly, So I don't think a lot of people are faced with that. What they're faced with is like, I've got to do this post, or what happens if our sales don't go up to this sort of number. They have these external sort of, fears, and not necessarily genuine risks, that is life and death. But when they are faced with those life and death sort of things, they just ultimately shit the bed, and they don't know how to handle it.
It's because they don't learn it at the rudimentary level first.
True.
Like crawl, walk, run works pretty much everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and look, not everybody as children or whatever are going to have the opportunity to deal with natural risk like that, right? And learn, but you just got to do it. When you figure out that you need it, you got to go do it.
Yeah.
Because there's only one way to learn that shit. You're not going to read about it and learn it.
Nah.
Like you can read about it and then go try some stuff, but you're only going to learn how to manage risk by doing it,
Yeah.
right? Because there's so many factors make up the confluence of managing risk, from your personality to your cortisol burn to the circumstance itself and your experience and shit like that. Just too much that goes into it for there to be a manual on how to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
You just literally have to go do it.
Exactly.
But when you go do it, it's like it's the same as learning how to use a map and a compass to identify terrain features and travel, and then going to use GPS later. Like you understand the underlying concept, the theory of it, right?
Yeah.
And then when you go into the business world, that's why it's like if you're a military dude that has managerial experience, you can probably create a fucking business management class and sell it to people, to be honest, because most people can't figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And it's for us, it's not that complicated because we learned how to do it in a way where there's actual risk.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a meritocracy. It's not fluff. It's not some dummy trying to sell you their multi-level marketing scheme. It's like, here's what happens if you want to stay alive. Otherwise, good luck, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think in a very early age in the military, that's what they teach you. You know, it's risk of life, risk of high cost items, mission failure. You get an actual opportunity to kind of face that. And more importantly, learn from the leaders that are in front of you on how to go about mitigating said name risk and turning it into something actionable. Yeah, it's crazy. Some of the
it's weird. I mean, but
my head, man.
but that's the benefit of it, right? Like even though you're gonna live let's say quote unquote normal life, you're gonna live in the suburbs or you're gonna live in a city, right? You're still good. These principles are universal and timeless, right? Like the ability to manage risk and make good decisions, the ability to lead, the ability to be resilient. These things map onto every fucking thing you're ever going to do in your life. Yeah. So you don't have to go take a class on how to make stone tools and carve up an animal necessarily, right?
For sure.
But taking that or a trapping class or just getting out in the woods in general and figuring out a couple things about yourself is a good idea for everybody. It doesn't matter where else you're going after that, right?
Yeah, that's my number one thing to folks is I always express if you want to start this process, just go outside.
Yeah.
Just be outside, pick a trail, go, listen to the sounds, the smells, take in some of the information that's there, formulate, your execution plan, but just go outside. That's the starting phase and really all of this. I mean, I've written about this in books where there's all sorts of folks that teach skills, preparedness, first aid, you name it. But it all starts with just kind of exposing oneself to the kind of that raw environment. Go stand in a fucking rainstorm. What happens to your body when it's done? Go be cold. Go be hot. Go experience this sort of stuff so you can start to kind of have a little bit of ground truth into what is, a reality for you.
And then the practical application of that later is like, and this is something like I used to do a lot of hallucinogenic drugs back in the day. Right. Now I still do, but I used to also.
Yeah.
But the thing that I learned at an early age doing that shit, which I think is a very powerful lesson that extends way beyond just that circumstance, is that this isn't real and this won't last forever, right? It's like pain, for example. The newer research we have on pain management, instead of just giving people opiates, is that the anticipation of relief from the pain will release endorphins itself, right? And treat your pain as well as a Tylenol will, right? So instead of taking 3 Tylenol, literally thinking about, it'll be nice is when this doesn't hurt anymore, and your body will produce endorphins that fucking treat the pain because nature provides, right? It's how it works. So it's like, call that whatever you want. It's not magic. It's not voodoo, witchcraft, or anything. It's just the natural process of your fucking body, dude. Like that's made for that.
Yeah, your body is a perfect machine. and it's designed to heal itself. I mean, across the board.
Even swelling, like people
Yeah.
are too quick, I think, my opinion. This is, maybe I'm wrong about this. People are too quick to try to treat swelling instead of realizing that it's trying to destabilize or immobilize rather
Yeah.
that
Protect.
fucking joint or whatever it is, right? It's trying to immobilize that area because there's damage.
Yeah.
So just maybe
Let it be.
let it fucking sit there. You know what I
It's
mean?
the same thing with shock. Remember, like I think it was right around like 2006, 7. The biggest thing guys would, get hit with an ID. There was something would happen. The guy would go into shock. Maybe he lost an appendage. And what they'd want to do is bring him back out of shock, wake him up, and that was really forcing a quicker bleed out.
Yeah.
Still throwing a tourniquet on, but it's the body shutting down, saying, "All right, something's wrong.
Yeah.
We're going to close off, protect the vitals, focus on the vitals. We'll maintain life." But we were trying to bring guys back out of that shock, and they were bleeding out even quicker.
I mean, we should have known better than that.
Yeah.
Like if you flip over too fast, you will black out.
Absolutely.
Your brain does that on fucking purpose, dude. Maybe just let it, I guess. I don't know. It's weird now because we're getting into this. A lot of people are more into the outdoors. A lot of people are finally getting into functional medicine, which is nice. I mean, it all starts with putting the right food in your body and seeing the sun on a regular basis. Those are the two most important parts. And being barefoot outside is a big part as well, at least for some amount of time per day. But we also have a ton of science that amplifies that stuff. Like there's peptides out there now that are really helpful, especially these days with the lack of bioavailability of nutrients in food is a big problem for us.
For sure.
Like I don't know what it was before because I'm not sure we had research on this, but at this point in American life, somebody like you or me, our size, needs to eat like 28 servings of green vegetables a day to get the nutrients out of that we need. Well, that's not going to happen.
Never.
Right? Ever. I'm never going to do that because they suck.
I hate
to be
vegetables.
honest. Vegetables are fucking pointless.
Yeah.
Like we're not ruminant animals. We weren't made to eat vegetables. We don't
do.
have I've been bitching about this for years now, but I keep hammering on it because I want people to fucking listen. Every living thing has a defense mechanism of some sort, right?
Bingo.
Animals have teeth and claws and brains and legs. They can run away. They can fight, whatever, right? They can hide, maybe. Plants can either bury themselves in the ground, have thorns around them, or fucking be impossible to digest or poisonous.
Yeah.
That's it. Right?
Saps, pollens,
Yeah.
invasives.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much stuff on
Like
plants.
that's just how it works, man.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't have to go out of your way a little bit to get that thing, it probably isn't good for you, to be honest.
And when you look at the plants that do want to be consumed, that's usually fruit.
Yeah,
That
fruit
is
is
the
the
whole
only
point.
one. Yeah,
That's it.
And that's because most fruit require. This is my theory on this, but like most fruit requires the seed get stripped and then launched somewhere,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
As opposed to like a pine cone can just fall out of it's prickly, but it can just fall out of the tree and it'll plant itself, right? Over time. I mean, if you think about the seed in a plant as an egg or a sperm, right? Just conceptualize it in that way. What's protecting it, and then how does it replicate itself? Think about it that way. So berries, fruits, stuff like that, go for it, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that's buried in the ground, root vegetables and onion, garlic,
Tubers.
potatoes, shit like that. I mean, potatoes aren't really that nutrient, but they're okay, right? They're not going to hurt. They're not going to harm you, really.
Yams.
Yams are better.
Sweet
Yeah,
potatoes,
certainly,
yeah.
that stuff's okay, but green, leafy shit that grows above ground, it's fucking pointless.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even it's like the reason certain animals are gamey is because of that shit, right? Because of the way they have to digest it. We only have the one stomach.
Yeah,
You know?
you got 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
When you think of leafy greens, there's plants called oxalates like sorrels and sheep sorrel and stuff like that has a citrus flavor. But even that, which tastes great in large quantity, can make you sick.
Yeah.
So it's even designed to have that kind of like delayed response. You can have a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge proponent for people to eat wild, as I've always called it. And this is nuts, seeds, that sort of stuff. Tubers are pretty good, and then meats, and then mixes of fruits. More importantly, seasonal eating.
Yeah.
Our bodies are designed for seasonal eating. Like we put on weight during the winter, and if we're always having strawberries or this food or that food available for us 24/7, our bodies are going to respond to that sort of falsity of nature, if you will. So seasonal eating and then eating wild will yield the best results. I know right before winter, I'm out hunting. I'm losing a lot of calories. As soon as I get to meat, I mean, it's
You're making stews and savory shit, right?
Nonstop. It's nonstop. And then coming out of winter, I'm always a little bit heavier. So, like, I'm down to my last bits of meat. Thank God I'm going hog hunting. But I know during that summertime, I'm burning way more calories. Temperatures change. Availability of certain things are kind of off the table. Some are on the table. But seasonal eating, wild foods. I mean, I don't like to science it too much. I think there's a lot of research which is beneficial, but I think a lot of people have an innate kind of understanding on I probably shouldn't be eating a Big Mac and fries 24/7. However, that piece of clean cut red meat looks great. Maybe that banana, something like that. But half the vegetables you eat today, you can't even find them in the bush.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's all artificially selected. So it's
well, you can look into. And this is for those of you out there that want to look into the research behind this. The pregnancy cravings are really interesting. Yeah. Like, oh, you're craving pickles. Why is that? That's weird. No, pickles have a fuck ton of electrolytes in them. Actually,
Salt.
Like I mean, it's like you're forget about eating for two. You're like providing blood flow and hydration and shit for two as well, right? And how does your body retain enough water to deal with two human beings if you're not eating a fuck ton of salt the whole time, right? I mean, some of this stuff seems like it would be pretty intuitive, but like we don't trust our own body and brain, which is kind of a weird relationship to have with your body and brain.
I don't get it. I think the research is good. I think it gives those people that don't believe their own bodies and brains, it gives them that little bit of proof, if you want to call it that, onto why these things are beneficial. I think people that are a little bit more in touch with their bodies, how they go about performing, they know if I had a horrible, sleep last night. Here's the reason why. Well, if you're up on your phone till, midnight and now you're waking up at 5, you're going to have some of those sort of, kind of feelings and kind of reactions. But people ignore. They're always. You ever Gavin DeBecker?
Yeah, I know Gavin.
Yeah, I mean, he's written some great.
The Gift of Fear.
Gift of Fear,
it's
right?
One of the best books ever.
It's phenomenal. I read it once and then gave it to my mom, my sisters. I'm like, just read this. But it's your inner gift. You know, listen to your intuition. Listen to yourself. It's typically right. When we ignore it, that's where the problems kind of come around.
Well, you've got you've done a lot of work in this regard as far as exposing people to this stuff. Sometimes it's direct and sometimes it's indirect, right? That's how it's got to be, I guess. Some people need to be grabbed by the chin strap and told, "Hey, fuckface, you got to do it." But I think most people just will learn lessons through experience and shit like that. Now you've got another book coming out, Wild Wisdom: Primal Skills to Survive in Nature. Tell me about that book.
Yeah, so this book, Wild Wisdom, is kind of an introductory book to maybe some intermediate skills in there to get people outside. I kind of said that earlier. This is to say there's nothing to really fear. The things that you want to come across, the lessons in it, kind of my personal experiences and reflections can get you to a little bit more wild path. I'm not talking about living in caves and hunting animals with spears, but identifying what you want to kind of achieve out in the bush and actually going for it. Here's some skills. Simple stuff like how to sharpen a knife. I mean, people carry knives on them all the time, but how do you actually sharpen a knife? How do you make a couple simple traps if you ever were in that situation? And this could be applied on a homestead, or whether you're in New York City and you got to take some squirrels out of Central Park. It could be kind of that book that can start people back to that kind of all natural way. Some of those skills that your grandfather, your great grandfather might have passed down. I've taken them how to build shelters, find water, understanding tool maintenance, and give it to folks so they can kind of experience the stuff that we kind of grew up doing, if you know what I mean. You know?
Yeah. What I hear when I'm listening to that is like practical exercise from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like how to do those things yourself, because people die from starvation. They die from a lack of clean drinking water, sanitation, and a lack of warmth, right?
Exposure is number one, yeah.
So it's like, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole on the whole green energy thing or any of that shit, but people don't die from it getting hotter. They die from the cold, right? Like it's a 98-2 ratio, basically. So, learning how to provide that stuff for yourself You know, it's very interesting to me how if you listen to somebody that's an outdoorsman and somebody who is a sociologist, you're going to hear a lot of the same shit.
Absolutely.
Right? Just different language, different examples, but the practical part is the same. You know what I mean? So there might be a message in there somewhere, to be honest.
Yeah, I think with even my first 2 books, one of them being Scavenger, second one Earth Roamer, it's not necessarily about if you do these things, you can be like me. That's not whatever. That's not even remotely what I'm here to say is. But if you read the books and you understand what I'm trying to express, you can find the points, those tools that could allow you to kind of understand yourself a little bit more. Because Scavenger is all about how I recovered after having a heart attack at 37, not because of drugs or alcohol. It just happened. So the topics in that grounding, right? Forest bathing, sleeping, sex, food, all the things that our body naturally wants and that we need. Here's just a quick snippet on how I went about using it. And it just progresses all the way up into Wild Wisdom, where it's like, here's some foundation stones. Now here's some practical exercises and applications that you should know. I mean, I've brought fathers out in the bush with 3 or 4 daughters. You know, mother has passed away, and his one concern is, as a man, I don't know how to keep my kids safe in this environment. So I'm not going to dwell on because you're a man. Let's actually focus on those hard skills and like these are the things that you can do, and then we can kind of progress to that sort of fatherly sort of influence.
I think it becomes like it's naturally fatherly because you know, you learn those skills. I think these are the kind of skills you learn that turns you into a firebrand, or some people might call it a prophet, I guess. Somebody that like shares a message with other people. These are like skills that are by nature transferable, right?
Absolutely.
Like you might spend a day teaching your kid how to do something, or right when they're older, like here's how you go to the bank and fucking cash a check, or here's how you open a bank account. You
write
like
a check.
Some small practical skill, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. It's an entirely different thing when it's a lifestyle lesson, right? Because the lesson usually extends far beyond just the lesson that you're actually teaching.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's the way I have always thought about it is like intersecting fields of fire, right?
Yeah.
Like, this skill is going to help you here, but it's also going to help you a little bit over here, and then match with this skill. Now you're covered in that area, right?
Yeah.
It kind of works that way. And I think it lends itself to being something that, and you see it now with the, like Ranella, yourself, Rogan, Cam, John Dudley, all these guys have transformed American society in a very brief period of time, in my opinion. There are so many more dudes and even women who are interested in finding high quality protein now, right? And not settling for it. And that's one field of fire. The other field of fire over here is self-reliance, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just the quality of the protein. It's also developing self-reliance, which gives you confidence, and it means you're no longer relying on government. And I don't think, look, no system of government will scale indefinitely, right? It just doesn't work that way because there's too many potentials for bad actors in there. But why? Every time you take a shortcut, every time you accept convenience from one of these motherfuckers, they're taking something from you. They're not giving you anything.
No.
They're exchanging something, right?
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, what am I exchanging? Well, when you learn these practical skills on how to handle yourself and take care of yourself, what you're really doing, aside from just like, there's practical shit. There's the high quality protein, there's the confidence, self-reliance, but really the downstream effect of that is that you're less reliant on these assholes who are trying to take advantage of you, right?
It's freedom.
Yeah.
That's a great way to express it. I mean, it's the ultimate form of freedom when you can do it yourself and you need nobody else, especially, someone sitting in a White Castle somewhere. You have the ultimate form of freedom. Your own food, your own water. I mean, you can't.
And then they actually,
you can't go wrong with it.
If they want something from you, they got to sell you on it and not just take it.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? That's why, we weren't meant to have a standing army in this country. We were meant to have a navy. And then we were supposed to build an army should we need it, right? We were supposed to have a navy to protect shipping, which was very smart and prescient by the framers of the Constitution. And they were supposed to build an army. And the point of that is that every time these patrician or aristocrats or whatever you want to call them feel like we need to go to war, well, you got to prove it to me first. Before I'm going to go or my sons are going to go, you got to come prove to me why I should do any of this shit, right? And that's it's good for both parties, to be honest. It means you don't do frivolous shit in war. It also means that there's a check and balance in that, right? Yeah. But you don't have that power if you subjugate yourself to the whims of these assholes all the time. And if it isn't always saying like, okay, you guys do whatever you want or whatever. A lot of the time it is like, so the government shows up in a community. This is something I say a lot. If they show up in a community and nobody has their hand out, they don't have any fucking power there, right? You're just some dick in a suit.
That's it. It's the purest form of self-reliance. Yeah. It's being, understanding where you come from, the founding fathers, but also being self-reliant, because that was part of that entire process. That entire message is limited this, all about you, your family, your community going forward. And we've strayed away from that. I personally have found that the more time I spend doing the things that give me a framework, give food to my kids, so on and so forth, the more freedom, the more independence I have, where it's less reliance. I mean, water sources, medicinal plants, food, I mean, I could go on for hours on the things that are readily available. And if someone's tried to deny me said name access, they'd have to be able to find me in the woods, because half those little soy boys wouldn't be able to make it out of the bush. They really wouldn't. I mean, I say, come follow me. You wouldn't be able to.
It's good advice. It's good advice. Well, look, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming. Tell everybody where they can find you, and when's the book? I know it comes out in August, but when's it go on pre-sale?
Yeah, so you can purchase it August 6th, but it is out for pre-sale right now.
Oh, great.
So for all the folks that are, I want it now. Just pre-sale is the only option, but I'm always sharing information and kind of updates on what's going on as far as DonnyDust.com. I am on social media. I'm not on it all that time, aside from really promoting a class or an opportunity. But yeah, DonnyDust.com, and if you are looking to learn skills and various things like that, there's a lot of sources that are out there. I'll never be one to, play the feast or famine sort of thing. There's a lot of smart folks out there that have different knowledge, skills, and abilities. Resource them, gain some of that independence, and you can live free.
Yeah, resource scarcity is not real.
Yeah.
That is a something made up by the state to try to control you.
Absolutely.
To be honest, like, oh, we've got to, like, these people that want to reduce the population. That's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Man,
if nature decides, it'll reduce the population.
We're done. If that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
I've always said nature doesn't lie, cheat, steal, or it ain't gonna fuck with you.
It's just like a bullet, man.
It's the purest form. Exactly. It's a bullet, and when it stops, I mean, you're on the other end. Yeah. But no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me here, man.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. Hopefully you guys got some out of this as well, and thank you for listening. This has been Citizen.